mean for the economy? 3.28 million, right around sort of some of this, the starkest estimates. Dagan McDowell, your reaction?
And you see what the market is doing here off the lows of the morning. But these are astonishing numbers, and they're probably only going to get worse in the coming months, because the focus of all of this, we're talking about the Senate rescue package moving to the House. It's containing the spread of this virus is the only way out of this, both as a health crisis and an economic and financial crisis. But luckily, the Senate moving quickly on this package and one of the most important things is these jobless benefits, not only expanded, as Lauren was talking about, but extended to self-employed people, contract workers, freelancers, and other non-traditional workers. And for small businesses, which employ half of the people in this nation, you have $350 billion in aid going to those small businesses. So those are two of the most critical things that will at least get people through financially this period that we've never seen, and certainly in my lifetime.
Yeah, I mean, Mattie Duppler, we knew that a number like this was coming. And, of course, what this is going to lead to is the big jobs number, the first Friday of the month, which is going to show us the unemployment picture worsening in a significant way.
That's right. And it's important to remember that these numbers will likely get worse as the weeks wear on, because that Senate bill does expand eligibility, which is necessary for many people who have been left out of that social safety net before. But that means that those numbers will probably get worse. However, I think it's very important that $350 billion that Dagan just mentioned as small business aid that's coming as a part of that Senate bill, that also allows small businesses to rehire people that they had to lay off. So because the Senate has dragged its feet for the past 5 days with Democrats demanding show votes on their progressive priorities, we have seen these numbers increase because businesses don't have any certainty that they'd be able to rehire. They now have that certainty once the House will pass this bill. So I hope that will put at least a small dent in these numbers if businesses can rehire to qualify for that aid. That's so important because that maintains that relationship between employer and employee, gives Americans who are struggling and who face a lot of uncertainty right now a little bit more certainty as we look in the coming weeks and months at the threat of this virus.
Brian.
Yeah, I think the one thing this makes us remember is that flattening of the curve is so critical here. And I'd like to see the government come up with some more guidelines around quarantining, because if you're a business, it's great you have some cash now, maybe you can manage your payroll for a couple months, but that doesn't give you any idea or clarity around when you get back to business. And I think that's a big deal. And I think this kind of, wishy-washy quarantine that we have going on, across different states is a big problem right now.
And may I just add one thing? Well,
I think that's why the president tried to give us some clarity. The president is hoping, I mean, he didn't say for sure, but he's hoping that some businesses could get back to work in a couple of weeks, and he's hoping that we could see a comeback in April, but, by Easter. But, of course, we have no idea if that's actually reasonable, given the fact that the disease is still front and center. Until we actually get the buy-in from the healthcare professionals, Dr. Fauci, Dr. Blix, then it's hard to know when people are going to feel safe going back to work.
And I just want to. And I just want to add one quick thing. We always talk about numbers, obviously, but these are more than 3 million individuals, parents, daughters, sons. We understand the human face of the suffering from people who are battling this virus, who have lost loved ones to this virus, to all of the healthcare workers and the first responders. This is a very real pandemic, but it's a real crisis from health to financial hardship. And when the president was talking about how an economic downturn is also a health crisis, a public health issue, he's right, because in tough economic times, you have people, the suicide risk goes up, addiction risk goes up, and the president might have said that in his own way, but that is also a very real issue, is mental health and the catastrophe that comes out of people suffering financial hardship and losing their jobs.
Yeah. Yeah, and you had a warning from the Federal Reserve Chairman as well, Jay Powell. I'm really glad that you humanized it, Dagan, because you're absolutely right. This is 3.28 million people. But Jay Powell said this: we may well be in a recession right now, but that there could be a strong rebound on the other side if the spread of the coronavirus is controlled quickly. So that's really what it is about. How quickly can we control the spread? How, significant is this social distancing, and is it working? We will have data on this. We will know in the middle of April, is what Dr. Burke said the other day. We'll have data to see if, in fact, this strategy is working. In the middle of April, we'll get that data out to see if, in fact, we are getting a control on this as it continues to go across the world. By the way, in all of this, the GDP was out as well. Just 10 minutes ago, it was 2.1%, but I guess that is backwards looking. 2.1%, Ryan.
Yeah, that's backwards looking. So obviously, at this point, that number is going by the wayside. So now we got to think about what the next couple quarters GDP is going to look like. That's where the focus has to be now.
Markets, it's interesting market performance here, Ryan, with the market coming off of the lows. Dagan, do you think this is an expectation that maybe this number could have been a lot worse? Why is the market coming off of the lows here, now down 186 on the Dow?
The highest estimate we saw, as we were talking about, was 4 million. Some of this could be from the commentary from Jay Powell he made in that interview, because Jay Powell is making clear that the Fed will do anything that in its power, and even expanded power, to provide liquidity to these markets, to businesses. And I do want to add that in this aid package, this rescue package passed by the Senate, about roughly $450 billion is in that package, which will go into the Treasury Exchange Stabilization Fund. That money is used to backstop losses that in the Federal Reserve. So you use that 13.3 power in the Federal Reserve Act, and the Fed can open even more facilities to provide credit and essentially rescue money to businesses far and wide. And one of the ideas at the Fed is they're going to be doing something for smaller businesses, for medium-sized businesses, not just large corporations. So that's how that money will be used. And see, for about $450 billion turns to $4.5 trillion in liquidity provided by the Federal Reserve.
Yeah, because it's like 5 times leverage or something. By the way, we haven't spoken about rates in a bit, but we are negative when you look at the 3-month. You got the 10-year yield below 1%, obviously, but there are actually some rates that have gone negative, like the 3-month. So just to underline your point, the Fed is here, ready to do whatever it takes, including perhaps taking some of these rates negative, which is not what most people would have wanted to see. We'll take a break. We are talking about hotels being used as quarantine sites. We'll take you to one next when we come right back. Stay with us.